My name is Celine Kai, 31 years old. The text landed at 11:47 a.m. on a Saturday, blunt as a notice taped to a locked door. Family brunch at Riverside Country Club, 1 p.m. Don't be late. And Maya, try to dress appropriately this time. Marcus never sent invitations. He sent orders dressed as courtesy. I watched the message hover on my screen, then set the phone face down on my desk, the glass a dark mirror that threw my reflection back without context. Beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, the city lay bright and precise, a geometry of glass and clipped sunlight. Riverside. I hadn't walked those halls in 6 months, not since the acquisition closed in October. Simple, silent, clean. The previous owners had been drowning in debt and pride. My firm paid cash and kept my name out of the local gossip on purpose. A habit, not a secret. There's a difference. At 12:55 p.m., I pulled my 6-year-old Honda into a spot between Marcus's new Mercedes and Jennifer's showroom-polished Range Rover. The clubhouse shone in the afternoon like a postcard. White columns, stone paths, the lawn's edge barbered to a razor. I'd signed off on that landscaping budget line myself, though no one had thought to ask me about work in years. Marcus waited at the entrance, arms folded, the faintest twitch at his mouth when he saw my jeans. "You wore denim," he said, as if describing a crime scene. "Hello to you too," I answered. "This is a private club," he leaned in, lowering his voice. "There are standards. I had to vouch for you. Try not to embarrass me." "I'll do my best," I said, and let the words fall between us like coasters. Inside, the dining room hummed with soft wealth, crystal lids kissing china, a low tide of discreet laughter, the bar's polished breath. My parents had claimed a window table overlooking the golf course, always the good tables, sunlight polishing the stemware before them. Dad's face carried the particular ruddy sheen of a second scotch. Mom's expression brightened and pinched at once. "Celine," she said, managing greeting and rebuke in a single exhale. "You came." "Of course, Mom." Jennifer swept in moments later with her husband, Brad, both outfitted like brand catalogs had learned to walk. Jennifer's eyes tracked my clothes, a scan for defects, then she leaned close as she passed. "Seriously? You couldn't even try?" I opened the menu, which I knew by heart. Chef Raymond and I had argued, in collegial whispers, over the spring lineup. The pan-seared salmon had won its way to the top with a dill strategy that still made me smile. I didn't smile now. Dad settled back, glass in hand. "Your mother and I wanted to discuss something important," he began, while Mom looked at Marcus and Jennifer with a pride that lengthened her spine. "It's about the family trust," she said, as if unveiling a cake. Marcus leaned forward, face solemn with satisfaction. "Given our positions and contributions to the family legacy, it makes sense to adjust things." "Adjust," I repeated softly. "You're 31, Celine," Dad said. "Still unmarried, no real career, those little computer projects." His hand flicked the air, erasing me. "Software development," I said, "and private equity." Marcus laughed, an actual bark. "Private equity? Celine, you work from your apartment doing freelance coding. That's not private equity, that's barely employment." "I see," I said, and placed the menu down. Years of boardrooms and hostile takeovers teach you where to set a glass, how long to hold a pause, how to exhale without ceding ground. My pulse didn't move. Dad cleared his throat, buoyed. "We're restructuring the trust. Marcus and Jennifer will receive the bulk of the assets. You'll still get something, of course, $50,000. That should be plenty for someone in your situation." $50,000 from an $8 million trust, half of 1%. I looked at the linen napkin. I watched light skim the fork's edge. I have learned to let moments stretch until the truth shows its seams. "That seems fair," I said. They relaxed. Shoulders eased, smiles quickened, a waiter materialized. Marcus lifted his hand like a conductor. He ordered a bottle whose label he mispronounced. Premium steaks, a pageant of appetizers. When he got to me, I said, "The salmon." "Just the salmon?" Mom asked. "No appetizer?" "I'm fine, thanks." Jennifer smirked toward Brad, watching the budget. Smart. The conversation slid around me like a river around a small stone. Marcus held forth on a case at the firm. Jennifer narrated expansion plans for the dental franchise, 3 new offices, and a partnership that sounded like a love letter to leverage. Dad sermonized his golf handicap. Mom discussed a Mediterranean cruise with the soft rapture of brochures. No one asked about my work. No one asked about my life. At one point, Marcus turned as if remembering a chore. If you ever want a real job, I know firms looking for legal secretaries. Pay's not great, but steady. That's thoughtful, I said. I'll keep it in mind. After lunch, Marcus proposed the terrace for drinks. He walked us through the clubhouse with a nod he'd practiced in the mirror, the nod of a man who wants witnesses. At the terrace entrance, he swiped his membership card. The light stayed red. He frowned and swiped again. Red. Odd, he muttered, pulling out his phone. Must be some technical issue. A staffer approached, a young woman named Rachel, with an attentive calm that had impressed me in interviews 3 months ago. Sir, is there a problem? My card isn't working, Marcus said, letting an edge creep in. He was not accustomed to resistance. I'm a member. Rachel checked her tablet. Mr. Wilson, I'm showing your membership status as under review. Under review? Marcus's voice tipped upward, theatrically incredulous. I've been a member 4 years. Check again. Rachel's fingers moved, steady. I'm sorry, sir. I'll need to ask you to speak with management, if you'll wait here. I'm not waiting anywhere. He stepped closer. Do you know who I am? I'm a partner at Henderson & Associates. I bring clients here, important clients. The terrace sharpened around us. Conversations lowered. Eyes shifted. I stood level with the railing, looking past them to the course, where 3 figures in pale shirts moved like sequenced birds. I counted their steps. I breathed. Jennifer tried for bright. It's just a computer error, right, Celine? You understand computers. Tell them to fix it. Before I could answer, the dining room doors opened, and a familiar stride crossed the threshold. Robert Chin, the general manager I'd promoted 2 months ago, approached with the calm of a man who had already decided who he was going to be when tested. Mr. Wilson, Robert said, professional and firm. I need to speak with you privately. I'm not going anywhere until this is sorted, Marcus snapped. Your staff suspended my membership over a glitch. Sir, Robert said evenly, your membership payment hasn't been received for 2 months. According to club bylaws, that places the account in violation. That's impossible. I have automatic billing set up. The automatic payment failed. We sent email notices on March 16th, March 30th, and April 12th, and left 2 voicemails. Club policy required suspension when we received no response. Mom stepped forward, the practiced outrage of respectability bristling at the edges. This is clearly a mistake. Just run his card again and charge whatever is owed. Robert hesitated for a heartbeat, just enough to register, but his eyes didn't waver. It's not that simple. The outstanding balance with late fees is $14,780, and per policy, the membership committee will need to review whether renewal is allowed at all. Marcus stopped himself, cheeks coloring. He looked around at the watching faces and chose volume. This is ridiculous. I want to speak to the owner, right now. The owner doesn't typically involve herself in day-to-day membership issues, Robert said carefully. I don't care what she typically does. Get her. Dad's voice rolled in, used to doors opening when he raised it. Young man, do you have any idea who we are? The Wilson family has been in this city for 3 generations. We know people, important people. Get your owner on the phone or I'll have your job. Robert's composure didn't move. I can pass along your concerns. He pulled out his phone. 1 moment. He stepped aside and spoke quietly. 30 seconds, maybe. When he returned, something subtle in his posture had settled. The owner has agreed to come down, he said. She was reviewing renovation plans in her office. Marcus looked triumphant. Jennifer adjusted her hair. Mom's hands smoothed the air. I let my gaze rest on the terrace doors as if something were about to arrive. It was. Not from the direction they expected. Members drifted closer, drawn by the gravity of a scene. I felt the tiniest tremor of pity for my brother, a passing weather. Then the air changed as footsteps approached. Purposeful and unhurried, and the terrace held its breath. Margaret Torres appeared first, silver hair caught in the sunlight like fine wire, moving with the kind of composure that made entire rooms reorganize themselves around her. She was 62, polished, deliberate. Exactly the reason I had hired her away from a major hotel chain 2 years earlier. Without a glance at my family, she went directly to Robert and spoke in a tone low enough to steady the air. Then she turned. Mr. Wilson, she began, voice carrying with effortless authority, I understand there's been some confusion about your membership status. Finally, Marcus exhaled, full of misplaced relief. Yes, Your staff suspended my account over a billing error. I want an immediate apology and reinstatement. Margaret smiled the way a storm might. I see. And you'd like to speak with the owner about this? Yes, Marcus said. I was told she was coming down. She's here. Marcus glanced around. Where? Margaret turned toward me. Miss Kai, would you like to address Mr. Wilson's concerns? A hush fell, so complete it had texture. Even the clink of glass ceased. I stepped forward, unhurried, until I stood between my family and the staff. Thank you, Margaret. Marcus blinked, confusion breaking across his face. What is this? Robert, I said evenly, please pull up Mr. Wilson's account history. Robert tapped his tablet, then turned it toward my brother. Your automatic payment failed on March 15th. The bank indicated insufficient funds. Notices were sent on March 16th, March 30th, and April 12th. 2 voicemail messages followed. When no response was received, we were required to suspend membership privileges. Marcus's color drained. There must be a mistake. There isn't, I said. I purchased Riverside Country Club 6 months ago. The acquisition closed quietly, as these things often do. I'm the owner. Silence stretched again, wider this time. You could hear the wind move through the terrace umbrellas. That's impossible, Jennifer stammered. You can't afford... The purchase price was $12.3 million, I said, tone still conversational. My firm handled the acquisition. We also own the Grandview Hotel downtown, the Westlake Golf Resort, and as of last week, the Riverside Shopping Center. Mom's hand went to her throat. But you said you were doing computer work. I was, I said. Past tense. I sold my second software company 5 years ago for $87 million. Private equity came after. Dad's scotch glass slipped from his fingers and shattered on the stone floor. Marcus found words, though they tangled. You've been letting us think you were broke? You never asked, I said simply. You assumed. Margaret adjusted her tablet. Miss Kai, regarding Mr. Wilson's membership? The suspension stands, I said. All notices were properly sent. Policy is clear. Mom's voice cracked. Celine, please, he's your brother. A brother who told me I should be grateful for $50,000 from an $8 million trust, I replied quietly. A brother who suggested I look for secretarial work. A brother who, not 30 minutes ago, asked me not to embarrass him. Jennifer tried a softer angle. If you're that successful, why hide it? Why drive that old car? Why live in that apartment? I met her eyes. I live in the penthouse at Grandview, which I own. The Honda gets me where I need to go. I don't need to perform success for anyone. Robert hesitated, then said, Miss Kai, there's another issue. Mr. Wilson's father, Mr. James Wilson, is also 2 months behind on payments. I looked at Dad. His face had gone gray beneath the flush. Suspend it, I said. Mom gasped. You can't do this to your own father. Can't I asked. An hour ago, you all decided I wasn't capable of managing wealth. Now you expect me to break my own policies to protect yours? Marcus stepped forward, anger edging into desperation. Celine, come on, this is family. Family, I repeated softly. The same family that spent years calling me a disappointment? That never once asked about my work? That chose to believe I had nothing because it was easier? We didn't know, Jennifer whispered. You didn't ask, I corrected. There's a difference. Margaret's phone buzzed. Miss Kai, your contractor for the renovation meeting has arrived. Thank you, I said. Tell him I'll be there shortly. I turned back to my family. Your memberships are suspended pending full payment and review. The accounting office is open Monday to Friday, 9 to 5. No personal checks. Celine, Mom pleaded, voice trembling now. Please, this isn't you. Oh, it's exactly me, I said. You just never bothered to see it. I started toward the door, the crowd parting silently as I passed. Behind me, the low murmur of disbelief began to swell, snatches of conversation, whispers of my name, the kind of gossip that breeds itself before the echo fades. Margaret matched my pace. That was surgical, she murmured. I wasn't aiming for blood, I said. Just clarity. Outside the terrace, I paused near the railing, letting the noise dissolve behind glass. Down below, the manicured course stretched immaculate and indifferent. My reflection swam in the window beside me, calm, composed, unfamiliar. Should I tell the contractor you'll be delayed? Margaret asked. No, I said. I've waited 10 years for that conversation. 10 minutes won't break me. As we walked back toward the main building, a wave of applause rose faintly from somewhere behind us. Soft, confused, human. I didn't turn around. Because this wasn't victory. It was arithmetic. What happens when silence finally adds up? The hush from the terrace still echoed faintly when I reached my office upstairs, a quiet, glass-walled space overlooking the course. From here, everything looked orderly. The tables reset, the greens precise, the chaos below reduced to choreography. I poured a glass of water, watching condensation gather, and for the first time in years, I let myself breathe. Margaret stood in the doorway, arms crossed, lightly. "They're still down there," she said. "Your mother's crying. Marcus is shouting into his phone. Your father looks like someone turned off his volume." "Let them," I said. "It's the first time they've actually seen me." Margaret tilted her head. "You were calm, almost too calm." "It's a reflex," I said, sitting. "They taught me that losing control means losing the room. I just finally learned to use it for myself." She smiled, faint but approving. "You handled them with grace. Most people would have thrown the wine." "I considered it," I admitted, "but then who would pay for the dry cleaning?" The phone on my desk buzzed. Robert again. "Miss Kai," he said when I answered, "Mr. Wilson is demanding to speak with you. He's threatening legal action." "For what?" "He's claiming discrimination, that the suspension was personal." I sighed. "Have legal draft a response citing policy 4.3. If he continues, refer all contact to the firm. No direct communication." "Understood." When the line clicked off, I swiveled my chair toward the window. The afternoon sun poured through the glass, gold and unapologetic. For a long moment, I just sat there, tracing the rim of my glass with my finger. "Would you like to postpone your contractor meeting?" Margaret asked. "No," I said. "Let's get back to work." The meeting ran 40 minutes. Pool renovation budgets, supply chain delays, a stubborn vendor who wanted 20% more for imported stone. I countered, trimmed, signed. By the end, we'd saved $50,000, a clean, simple victory that didn't need applause. After they left, Margaret lingered by the door. "You know they'll reach out," she said. "Your family. They'll want to make amends now." "Now that I'm worth knowing," I murmured. "They might surprise you." "Maybe," I said, but didn't believe it. Outside, the shadows stretched long across the green. I could still hear faint echoes of voices. My mother's wavering, Marcus's sharp. Dad, silent. Always loud until it mattered. At 4:30, I walked back through the club's foyer. The members who had witnessed the terrace scene avoided my eyes politely, discreet curiosity wrapped in manners. The air smelled of citrus polish and old money. My footsteps sounded precise against the marble. The parking lot was nearly empty. The Mercedes, the Range Rover, my parents' car, gone. I stood by my Honda, watching the last rays of sunlight smear gold across the windshield. For a heartbeat, guilt stirred, small, inconvenient. Then I remembered Marcus's voice saying, "Try not to embarrass me." I remembered my father's dismissive laugh, my mother's careful silence. The guilt ebbed like a tide retreating from rock. When I got home, the penthouse felt like another country. Wide glass, low jazz, the faint scent of cedar from the candles I'd lit that morning. I poured a glass of wine, kicked off my shoes, and stood by the window as the city lights blinked alive, each one a small proof that work could be enough. My phone buzzed. 37 missed calls, 15 texts, 3 voicemails. Marcus, Mom, Jennifer. I didn't open any of them. Instead, I opened my laptop. The screen still glowed with numbers from earlier. Projections for a new resort property in Miami, undervalued and ripe for acquisition. Calm, measurable things. Work doesn't scream, work just waits. By the time the city outside softened into full darkness, I'd forgotten to eat. The hum of the fridge filled the silence. I liked it that way. Then the phone rang again. Marcus. I stared at the screen until it nearly timed out, then answered. "Hello?" His voice was smaller now. "Celine, we need to talk." "Do we?" "Please," he said. We didn't know." "That's the point," I said quietly. "You never asked." "Mom's a wreck. Dad's furious. Jennifer's—" He exhaled. "Look, I said things. We all did. But we were just trying to— To what? Protect the family legacy?" "Yeah," he said softly. "I guess." "You were protecting an illusion," I said. "The version of me that made you comfortable." He went quiet. "Tell Dad," I added. "The billing office will email the reinstatement policy on Monday. I suggest you read it." "Celine, come on, we're family." "Family isn't immunity, Marcus. It's supposed to be accountability." He didn't respond for several seconds. "You sound just like one of your board meetings." "I take that as a compliment." The line stayed open. 2 breaths. 3. Finally, he said, "Are you happy?" The question landed heavier than it should have. I'm free, I said. That's enough. I ended the call before he could reply. Outside, the city shimmered. Below me, cars traced light trails like slow-moving veins. I pressed my palm against the glass. Somewhere down there, they were still talking about me, trying to rewrite the story before it reached anyone else. Let them. I had finally written my own. I didn't sleep that night. The city moved beneath my windows, faint, luminous, alive, and I stood watching it as if it might answer a question I hadn't asked yet. My wine glass sat half-finished on the counter. Beside it, my phone blinked with new messages. Mom's voice in one voicemail, soft and breaking. Jennifer's text, defensive and fragile at once. We didn't mean it that way. Marcus again. Can we just talk, please? I didn't respond. Some things can't be translated after they've already been said in the language of contempt. At dawn, I opened the curtains wider. The glass tower across the street caught the first light, a shard of rose gold fire splitting the skyline. For a brief, impossible moment, I remembered being 19, coding in the dark corner of a dorm room, my coffee cold, my dreams louder than anyone's approval. Back then, I used to imagine success as applause. Now I knew it sounded like silence. By 8, my email filled with club correspondence, Robert's reports, Margaret's notes, the legal summary from my firm. Marcus had attempted to dispute the membership suspension, citing familial bias. Legal handled it, of course. Procedure always beats performance. I poured coffee, reading the threads like they belonged to someone else. In a way, they did. The woman who had stood trembling at family dinners, apologizing for existing too loudly, was gone. At 9, Margaret called. The media line is quiet, she said, but members are talking. Some are impressed, some are curious. A few are intimidated. That's fine, I said. Let them wonder who I am. It keeps things running smoother than the truth. Do you want to make a statement? No, Celine. She hesitated. I've worked for a lot of owners. None of them ever walked straight into fire and smiled. You sure you're okay? I'm better than okay, I said. I'm done hiding. After the call, I sat by the window, tracing circles on the coffee mug's rim. The truth was more complicated than confidence. It was relief braided with sorrow. There had been a time, small, tender, nearly forgotten, when I would have given everything just to be seen by them, to be loved without earning it. But the years had carved that need into something harder, cleaner. The phone buzzed again. This time Dad. I let it ring out. Then curiosity, no, closure, made me play the voicemail. His voice was gravel. Celine, your mother's worried. I'm not good with words, but you made your point. Maybe too well. We'll talk when things calm down. He hung up before apology could find him. It always did. I closed my eyes. The words tasted like déjà vu. When things calm down, they never do. At noon, I walked through the penthouse, each step echoing lightly on the polished floors. My entire life fit into this space. Quiet, deliberate, earned. I stopped by the shelf where a small framed photo leaned, me and my siblings as kids, grinning under a sprinkler, grass sticking to our legs. I'd kept it all these years, though I wasn't in touch with the people inside it anymore. I placed it face down. By late afternoon, Margaret arrived for a quick update meeting. She dropped a file on my table. Final approval forms for Miami. The numbers look good. I scanned the pages. The resort was struggling, but it had potential, a pattern I knew how to heal. Undervalued assets, mismanaged reputations, systems that needed discipline, not sentiment. Looks perfect, I said. We'll close next quarter. Do you ever stop? She asked. I did once, I said, for 10 years. Didn't end well. She nodded. For what it's worth, you didn't destroy them out there. You gave them a mirror. Mirrors break too easily, I said. Sometimes they need to see through glass instead. When she left, I stood alone again, the city folding into dusk. Somewhere down there, my family was likely gathered, parsing my every sentence, trying to build a narrative that made sense. She lied. She betrayed us. She changed. Maybe all of that was true. Maybe none of it was. I picked up my glass, refilled it, and stepped out onto the balcony. The air smelled faintly of rain, though the sky was still clear. The phone vibrated one last time. Marcus again. This time, I answered. Celine, he said quietly. I've been thinking. That's new, I said before I could stop myself. He gave a small, humorless laugh. Yeah, guess I deserve that. Listen, we messed up. I messed up. I was jealous, okay? You built everything we pretended to have. You weren't jealous, I said softly. You were conditioned to think success only counts if someone else sees it. He was silent for a long time. Then, are we done? I don't know, I said. That depends on what you do next. I'm not closing the door, but I'm not holding it open anymore either. I can live with that, he said. I hope you can. We hung up without goodbyes. I turned back toward the city, lights glittering like constellations I'd built myself. Somewhere below, the world kept moving, oblivious, ordinary, mine. I raised the glass in a quiet toast, to no one and everyone at once. To family, I whispered, to lessons that finally cost what they're worth. Then I smiled, slow and real, the kind that reaches the eyes only when there's nothing left to prove. The laptop blinked awake on the table, its screen filled with numbers, contracts, new beginnings. I sat down, fingers steady, and started typing again. Because life goes on. Because work waits. Because freedom isn't loud. It's earned in silence. And this time, the silence was mine.